Hello, everyone, and welcome. I think we may have lost Dr. Corte. One never knows when you're dealing with a doctor. There she is. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Corte and Tandy Miles.
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you guys are enjoying this session so far. I'm Dr. Pearl Corte Kumapli. I am a family medicine and obstetrics physician here in Evansville, Indiana. And I am so happy to welcome Tandy Miles to our session today on parenting. And I will hand it over to Tandy to tell us a little bit about herself.
All right. So good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Tandy Miles. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've worked in many different fields and different capacities, but most of my work has been working in counseling with children and families, and more specifically birth to 5, infant toddler mental health is my specialty, as well as perinatal mental health. And so that's pretty much my passion and my background, and I've been doing that for over 20 years here in Arizona. So I'm excited to be here today with you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tandy. So the format will be that Tandy will give us a little bit of an overview of what she would like to discuss with us today. And then we're going to open it up to questions. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat box while she's doing her talk, and then we can talk about everything at the end. So without much ado, I'm going to hand it over to Tandy. Thank you so much.
All right, so I do have a PowerPoint. Not sure if someone can share that.
I can share. Go ahead and share it.
Okay.
So. Alrighty, are you able to see my screen?
Yep. All right. So today we're going to talk about the building blocks of what I feel like is the necessity of all areas. I started this training because I worked in a healthcare clinic doing integrated behavioral health, and a lot of parents were coming in asking about what do I need to do to get my kid ready for school. And I heard a lot of stuff about ABCs, and they know their 1, 2, 3s and all that great jazz. But I always ask a question about what about your child's social and emotional development? Where do you see them at as far as being able to complete some of those developmental milestones? Because we know research shows us that kids who are doing well social and emotionally will automatically do well academically, and then will also automatically do well later in life. So that's kind of the basis of this. And I feel like it's a conversation that's not had a lot with parents. And so that's kind of been my focus this year, is really talking about that. As you are hearing things and have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or to write them down so that we can definitely touch base with them. Okay, next slide.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry, a little
No,
bit
you're
of a
good.
lag.
You're good. All right. So the significance of social and emotional development, we're going to talk about what it is and why does it matter, and then some actual take-home strategies for you as parents to have when looking at that. So first, let's define what social emotional development is. And that's on our next slide. So social emotional development is basically the process of acquiring and gaining skills necessary that we need in order to understand and manage our emotions, right? We all know that we have a full range of different emotions that we can feel and experience. But social and emotional development, we want our children to know those different emotions, be able to label those emotions, and be able to communicate about those emotions to others. Also, part of social and emotional development is managing those emotions. So when I get frustrated or when I get upset, what do I do with that? What is healthy versus not healthy? Another part of social emotional development is being able to form those positive relationships with other people, being able to navigate social interactions effectively, and do that in a really good, healthy way. Now, when we break this down into social development and emotional development, we have some other different areas. So social development is really the ability to create and sustain meaningful relationships with adults as well as other children. So does this child know how to form a relationship with people? Do they know what needs to happen in order to keep a relationship going? Those are part of that social development skills. Do they know how to enter into play with people? Do they know how to resolve conflict? Those are the things that go with social development too. Emotional development is basically the ability to express, recognize, and manage emotions, as well as be able to respond appropriately to other people's emotions. So can I tell that Dr. Pearl is mad, or can I tell that my mom is over here and she's kind of looking kind of worried? Are our kids able to pick up on those things and be able to express them? So those are the different definitions that we are going by today when we're talking about social emotional development. So why is it important? Well, just like I talked about earlier, right? So we know that social emotional development is the building block for success later in relationships and career and our overall well-being. We also know that it's important in order to be able to build and maintain healthy relationships, navigate social interactions. We're on the next slide. We're also able to develop emotional regulation when we have good social emotional development. So that means that we're able to handle stress and we're able to cope with challenges that may come our way, make responsible decisions based off the information we have. We know that social emotional development also fosters critical thinking skills and problem solving and being able to come up with different resolutions for different situations. and also social emotional skills correlate with better academic performance, such as being able to focus and being able to engage in learning and being able to effectively work with our peers. Mental health, we know that kids who have really good, healthy social and emotional development, they're also able to be resilient and be able to have a low risk in mental health issues. And they're better able to equip with handling stress. And also, we know that most of the time when kids have really good social emotional skills, we see that they have better long-term outcomes. They have higher satisfaction in their life, in their home life, in their adult life, and we see a lot less behavioral issues. So this slide that we see right now is the components of social and emotional development. So these are the different things that come into place when we're thinking about social and emotional development. They're kind of those building blocks. So the first one is emotional awareness. So again, recognizing our emotions, owning our own emotions, as well as being able to be aware of others. Are you able to identify different feelings? Are you able to label those feelings correctly? Are you able to also understand that other people have emotions too? The other piece that goes with that is self-regulation. So self-regulation is being able to manage and control one's emotions, as well as being able to think about one's thoughts and behaviors as well too. So we hear a lot about self-regulation in TikTok, social media, Instagram. I hear it all the time that people are listening to about videos about social self-regulation because it's a big word, but it's really important because this is something that we are seeing that kids are struggling with now in school. They're not able to regulate their emotions. They're not able to regulate their behavior. So part of this self-regulation too is being able to have skills on how to have impulse control and how to have some sense of delayed gratification, right? Like you can't get it right here, right now, but maybe you can get it later. And so how do you deal with that time frame that you have to sit and wait to get what it is that you want? Also with self-regulation, again, coping with that frustration and stress that's coming your way. How do you cope with that? The next building block of social and emotional development is the empathy piece, right? So we hear a lot about people who don't have this sense of empathy, and empathy is basically the capacity to understand and share feelings of others and being able to recognize and respond to others' emotions with sensitivity and compassion, as well as being able to take perspective and show concern for the other person, right? So I'm able to hear what's going on for you or see what's going on for you and have some sense of compassion or some sense of a feeling of like, oh, I need to maybe help or see what I can do to help. That's part of that empathy piece. The next piece is the social skills. So this again is part of that ability to facilitate positive relationships with others and interact with others. Our children and are they able to communicate and cooperate with other people? Do they know how to resolve conflict when conflict comes up? Are they assertive in being able to speak about what it is that they want or be able to speak about like what's right and what's not right? And then being able to understand social cues. So maybe, if Johnny's not in a good mood right now, maybe I should just read that and walk away. So are they able to read those social cues that are coming from other people? Okay. And then the next part, oh, go ahead.
Oh, please, sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. The next part is of the components of social emotional development is the parent-child relationship. So that's really looking at responsiveness in parenting. Like we hear a lot about gentle parenting, compassionate parenting, conscious parenting, right? All those different things. But really what we're saying is that as a parent, you influence your child's social and emotional development by your interactions with them. You being able to, one, recognize that your child is a child that has their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own needs, their own desires. And so in that, you're able to respond to your child in a different way if you were thinking like they didn't have those things, right? So I usually give the example of how back in the day we were told to be seen and not heard, right? So if anything came up, we were quiet as a mouse. We just sat still, we wasn't going to rock the boat. And so now I hear a lot of parents are like, oh my gosh, they're so different than how I was. Well, it's different because you have told your child that I understand who you are. I understand that you have emotions and you have feelings, and I want to know about them and I want you to tell me about them. So they're going to behave in a different way than how we behave, where we didn't talk about emotions and we were just whatever you said, mom, dad, right? So that's some of the struggle that some parents are seeing right now, but that's because you are seeing your child as an individual who has different needs than you have. Um, Also with that, it's just being able to have that, build that strong relationship with them, being able to um, respond to them appropriately when they need you and in those times of distress. And that is very much a big component of social emotional development, because I know that if I am having a hard time or I'm in distress, I know that I can go to my mom. I know I can go to my dad. I know I can go to Grammy. That's a big deal for kids, and that transfer over into when they go into the classroom setting, hopefully. They know that if they are in any type of stress or challenge, they can go to their teacher and that they can be helped. Um, so that's part of the parent-child relationship piece, as well as looking at how you foster your home environment. So making sure that you are providing consistent routines and that you're providing structure. Routines and structure help kids to know what to expect, and it provides them with predictability, which the decreases anxiety for kids if they know exactly what to expect in their home environment or in other different environments. It just provides a supportive place for them to talk about their feelings, to know that they're going to be okay. Um, so that's part of also that parent child. And then also as parents, we know that kids are always, always, always looking at us. They're always watching us and looking and listening to see how we handle and how we do things. And so it's really important that we are modeling all these different things of social and emotional development, so that they have basically a book of how to be and how to do things. And the last part of social emotional development is just that consistency and support. So, really going back to, I think, if anything, we've learned that it's really important for us to have the village around us, to be able to have other people that can help, that another person within the family or friend is crazy about your child, that they love them, that they find them to be really important. Children need that. And that's something that sometimes we take for granted, but it's really, really important that we have the village around not only us, but our children as well, too. I believe we might have some questions, but I don't know if we want to stop and answer, or keep going and then answer at the end.
We can go through them.
Okay.
So the first question is from Patrice. And Patrice is asking, if planning to homeschool, what environments are best suited to help develop social and emotional development of a child?
Yeah, I think if you are planning to homeschool, being able to provide social environments for kids that they can interact with other children their age or above them. So I know a couple of homeschool families who have, I think they have like a homeschool co-op that gets together and they meet. certain times of, there's one that I know where they meet once a week. And then there's another one where they have like a group setting that they do on like once a month or something like that. But I think as long as you provide opportunities for kids, for your kids to be around other kids, to develop that social and emotional piece, that is really helpful. But then also too, like I just said, recognizing that you as a parent can also provide that within your home, by modeling good behavior on what do we do when we're frustrated or when we're upset, modeling how do we have empathy for others. So a lot of that piece will come from both, not only any social interactions that you do, but also from you as well as the parent. But yeah, definitely extracurricular activities. um I used to be like a no homeschool person, but now that I have my own child and I've seen how the schools are, I'm totally like, hey, homes, if you can do it, great. Homeschool, and then make sure that you just have other activities where kids are hanging out with other kids and learning different things. It's definitely doable.
Certainly, that's a very good question. Now, the next question is also from Patrice regarding reward system. So the question is implementing a reward system recommended in helping develop a child? And how do we prevent the expectation of always being rewarded for doing the best or the right thing?
Good questions, Patrice. So yeah, so I think that the reward system is hard because it does set up um this expectation of always being rewarded or always getting something for doing the right thing or doing what is expected of you. And so I try to steer away from the reward system when talking with people, but really trying to help them to help their child identify what is it like when you went and you cleaned your room, like how did that make you feel? Oh, I felt really good that because I did it all by myself and I could do it without you. And like, oh, that must have been so good to know that you could do that by yourself. And look, you feel so good that you could do that by yourself. You feel really confident in yourself. And maybe with that confidence, you can do anything that you put your mind to. So, really trying to get the child to identify like what it is that make them feel good about what it is that they did, to kind of create that internal motivation of doing well and doing what's expected and how that makes you feel when you do those things, versus when you don't, is it's probably the best reward than an actual reward system.
Yes, the reward system is very tricky and has to be navigated very cautiously.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's all we have. So maybe we can go on.
Okay. All right. And then the next slide. All right. So I just talked a little bit more about that before, about how we know that kids who are doing well, research tells us all the time that social and emotional development is the foundation for academic success. So if kids possess strong emotional skills, we know that they're going to be equipped to focus. They're going to be engaged in the classroom. They're going to be engaged in their learning. They're going to build positive relationship with teachers and adults and peers. And the research shows that the higher level of social emotional competence, that's what we call when someone is doing well, that they're competent in that area of development, they tend to perform academically better and achieve higher grades, and also demonstrate an improved learning outcome across all different subject matters. So it's really important. We also know that children who regulate their emotions and communicate effectively work really well with other people, right? So if I can communicate my feelings and my thoughts in a really good way, then I can communicate that with other people so that they know what it is that's going on for me, or what are we doing with this project? And then that can help them to also do well. Um, Kids who have really good social emotional development are able to think creatively, and they definitely approach learning with confidence, right? So the confidence of, this might be a little bit hard, but if I try, or if I ask for help, I can get it. Um, and those are different, those are essential skills that we want kids to have throughout their childhood. But if we really think about it, these are skills that we as adults really need and want. We all have that coworker that we're like, oh my gosh, girl, did you not learn how to communicate with other people so we can get this done? Like, these are skills that we need later in life as well. And so as kids develop them and we see that in our kids, we know that they are going to do well later too. And also, what the research shows is that social and emotional development is also leads to better well-being later in life. So they have more of a ability to have a sense of belonging and have a sense of motivation and very goal-oriented. They feel connected to their community and to whatever it is that their passion is. And so they're more likely to pursue it because they have that confidence in themselves. We also see that kids with good social and emotional development are really active in pursuing extracurricular activities, and then also bringing that back to not only their community, but also their family as well too. Um, and then lastly, we see that kids with social and emotional development are able to handle stress and cope with stress and challenges or changes. They are able to adjust better just because the social and emotional skills that they acquire really help them to navigate those different challenges that they have. So these kids tend to have less of a issue with depression or anxiety. Again, we're not holding it in, we're letting it out. We feel okay and we feel confident that the people around us are going to hear and respond to us. Okay. The next slide. All right. So now some strategies for parents. Um, I always say the biggest thing that you can do is make your own emotional and mental health a priority. There's nothing like when we're feeling good and we're doing good, we are able to meet the needs of our kids in a better way. Um, I teach this all day to my postpartum moms that, like, it's hard because you feel that mom guilt, you feel that guilt for, doing something for yourself. But in that time that you do something for yourself, you come back a better person, a better mom, a better wife, a better sister, friend, because you were able to make sure that you got your needs met. So really making yourself a priority is huge. And it also shows to your kids that it's okay. It's okay to do that. I was telling a client the other day that I remember my mom, when I was about 8 or 9, I remember her going out with her friends and she came back home and taught the electric slide. That was a long time ago. But, I remember that. I remember her having myself and my brother and my dad. And, she went out with her 3 friends, wherever they went, probably out dancing. And she came home and she taught the electric slide the next day. But I remember that she took care of herself by hanging out with her friends. And so that's something that I make sure that I do as well as part of my priority and care of myself. Um, the other piece is understanding your child's feelings, thoughts, experiences, needs, and desires. Again, really, really get to know your child. Because once you really know your child, you're going to know exactly what it is that they need, or you're going to know when something doesn't fit well, or when something isn't going well. You're going to know because you know your child. Um, and so the more that you get to, like, listen to them, and get to be involved in their interests, the better it is that you can provide them what it is that they need. So having structure and routines in your home, so really being consistent with that. Again, that just gives kids that safety and that predictability to be able to know what's going to happen. How do we do things? All kids love and thrive on structure and routines. And so it's really important that we as parents provide that to them. Also engaging in any type of bonding activities. So, if that means that like you only have 5 minutes to just come home and just play with your kid, whatever it is that they want to play with, or having those mommy, daddy, grandma dates. That's really good to do because again, that strengthens that parent-child relationship, but also strengthens the confidence in your child. Encourage emotional sharing and expression. So this is really big and hard because again, we're learning from scratch. Some of us, if it didn't happen in our home, but really being okay with your child saying, I feel upset, I feel mad. Being okay with, what's going on with you? You look mad, you look like you're sad. Let's talk about it. Or like, I see something's going on. Just let me know when you're ready to talk about it. Um, that's encouraging emotional sharing and expression in the house where we're not getting mad that our kids are mad, but we're actually saying like, it's okay to be mad, but like, let's just talk about it or let's just manage it in a different way. Again, the modeling of the emotional regulation and empathy, like how are you when you get mad? Do you slam doors? Do you throw things? Do you growl? If you're doing that, then you can expect that your child is going to also follow suit and do the same thing when they get mad because you're modeling and showing that to them. And then setting clear and consistent limits and give choices. One of the things that I hear a lot is that, oh, what's gentle parenting or attachment parenting? It sounds like it's not, it's just this easy flow of parenting. And really, it's not. It's still giving kids choices and giving kids limits and giving them those boundaries and making sure that those things are clear and that you stick with them. It's not just giving them whatever it is that they want. So those are really good things to do. And then, in time, you can also give choices where that allows kids to practice, I feel like, making decisions in different ways and different things. I think we have a question.
Yes, there's a question in the chat. It's for Patrice. So she says nowadays there's so much pressure and competition in academic environments. How do parents prevent that pressure from developing depression or self-deprecation in a child?
So there's pressure in how do parents prevent that pressure? Oh, competition in academic environments.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So it's really more so of, again, putting it back onto the child about like what it is that they are feeling about their success or their grades. Um, I always ask, like, did you try? Did you try really hard? Did you study? Okay. Well, then you did your best, right? You did your best. That's okay. It's okay if your best is this right now. Um, let's just keep working at it. Let's figure out what we can do to make it better, or, really helping them to uh come out of that competition piece and really kind of relating it back to what it is that they did, what it is that they do well, what are some ways that they can, if they want to do better, then what are some ways that what are some things that they need to do in order to do better, right? So if I'm, I tell the story all the time. I was horrible at math. Obviously, I wasn't supposed to be a doctor or anything like that because I just was horrible. And I had geometry, and my mom and dad got me got me a college tutor for geometry, got me everything I was supposed to have with my geometry class, and I still kept getting a D And the best thing that I learned from that was my mom and dad was like, well, at least you tried. And we did all these different strategies, and math is just not your forte. And I was like, you know what? I agree. So again, it's really just going back and breaking it down for your kid as to like what it is that you're doing, how are you doing it, and what are some different strategies that we can do, and kind of eliminating that pressure that they're getting from their peers, and just knowing that they are okay just who they are and how they are.
And I can actually share some personal experience here with my own daughter,
Yeah.
who is in a very academically challenging high school right now.
Mhm.
And when she started high school, and I started to see the tendencies, right? So it's literally based, the way you handle that is based on the kid's personality.
Right.
So when I realized that there was going to be some anxiety related to grades and performing and overachieving and getting 100, trying to get extra credit even when their grade is 99% and all
Right.
that. So then we actually had to walk back from, hey, be the best, to like, okay, well, we're not going to stress about grades, right? Because then, so a lot of that academic environment really has to do with the child and
Right.
how you temper it. So we're currently going through college, preparing for college, and SATs and ACTs, and we're at the point where like, well, I want to redo the SAT because I want a perfect 1600. No, we don't have to have a perfect 1600, so that's I think that's where the child's temperament comes in,
Yes.
and where the parents has to figure out how the child's temperament is, and then go from there.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That goes back to that piece of knowing your child, right? Like, so
Yeah.
really knowing your kiddo, so that way you kind of know how to handle different situations, because every kid is different.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is incorporating a family calendar.
Oh,
So is incorporating a family calendar accessible to the whole household a good idea for developing structure where everybody is responsible for something in the home? And this is also from Patrice. Thank you, Patrice. These are awesome questions.
they are. Again, I think this goes back to your child and your family, because some people can have that calendar up where everybody can see it and it can provide relief and knowing. But then for some other kiddos or some other family members, it can create anxiety. So it's really knowing your family and knowing your kiddo as to whether or not that's going to help them to know like what to expect, or if that's going to create some sort of anxiety for them. Um, Most of the time with the structure and routines, it's more so of like we know that we're going to go to bed at this time. We know that we eat dinner at this time. We know that we have, I always let my son know, like, okay, like this, your football season is starting. You're going to have practice on this day and this day. And so that he remembers that, when I come home, I'm not going straight to like doing this or that. We got to leave and we got to go to football practice. So I think it just kind of really depends on your family.
And I completely agree. And also depends on the temperament. I have
Yeah.
two high schoolers. My daughter is, very, particular, and my son is like, okay, whatever, but
Mhm.
for me to be able to keep track of everything, we started a family calendar, and everybody's supposed is responsible for putting their activity on there. That way we know what's going on.
Right.
So far it's been working well for everybody to know what's happening, coordinating everybody's schedule. And but yeah, definitely it can cause some anxiety depending on who the child is.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So next we have Malcolm asking, do you see any disparities in social emotional learning skills among kids who are homeschooled or go to online school or third spaces over traditional schools?
Yeah, I think what I have seen in my practice is I see that kids who are, I see a variety of different things. Okay, so I see kids who are homeschooled, who are engaging in other social activities. I see them doing really well social and emotionally. I see kids who do homeschool but don't really interact with other kids. I see them, it just depends because I've seen a couple different instances of that where they were homeschooled and they were really shy and really not having really good peer interactions with the little peers that they had. But then I've seen some where they were homeschooled and they decided to go into a traditional school in high school and did really well. So that was pretty cool to see too. Because they were ready to go to high school. They were ready not to be homeschooled anymore. And then, so the difference that I've seen the most is if the child has had any type of social group interactions or socialization with other kids, and if there is limit on technology, which I'll go into the slide next, then there is I see a big difference in social emotional learning with that piece. I don't know if you've seen anything.
Yeah, I can add some here. As a family medicine doctor, I do see, I do full scope, so I see babies all the way to old age. And yes, I do see that ki kids that are homeschooled are more well balanced because, as Tandy had mentioned, they tend to be in co-ops. There's intentional structure to work on the social emotional skills and interactions with other children. Online, on the kids that do online school, I have found are usually switching from traditional to online school because there was something going on in their situation, so that made them switch to online school. So for instance, I had a couple of situations where, because of severe obesity and bullying, the child preferred to do online school. But that worsened the obesity because they were home, and not exposed to other kids and just eating and not having the physical activity of actually moving from class to class and going to recess and stuff. So that was a situation where, we had to discuss that with the parents. So I find homeschooled kids are more balanced in terms of social emotional development versus online school. But again, this is based on just, my experience in my practice. And I do see a few kids.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what you're saying. And then I think traditional schools, I feel like it's kind of hit or miss. It just kind of depends on what school that person went to and if that school was really focused on social and emotional learning, or that teacher was, and did they facilitate that in their classroom, or did they not? I will say that we've seen a huge difference in kids who had to start their kindergarten year online versus starting their kindergarten in the classroom due to COVID. So that is something that a lot of the teachers are talking about, is that COVID generation of kiddos who started school right when COVID happened, and they were shut down and had to do it online. So but again, I think that even with us talking about this, I think that, one of the things that the homeschool kids have is that their parents are also teaching them all these different things, and they have these opportunities to actually practice it. And so that gives us a lot of information too, as to like how to go forward and help our kiddos too.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's see how much we're doing with time. Okay, so move on to the next slide. I think we have
Yeah.
all the questions. Okay, awesome. Next slide.
All right. So next slide is just talking about other skills that you can do, fostering independence. So again, I just read an article about how sometimes we have a little bit too much structure activities for our kiddos, and that we don't allow them to have the independence to kind of come up with their own game or come up with their own imaginative play. And so really being mindful of that and making sure that you're allowing your kids to have some non-structured time, and allowing them to have times that they can be independent. Allowing for problem solving. So one of the things that I hear a lot is that this new generation in their 20s don't have problem solving and critical thinking skills. So those are things that are part of the social emotional development that you can foster at home. Like, oh, well, this looks like it's a problem. What are some choices that we might have that we can, what are some choices that we have? Well, we can decide that we're going to make this today, or we can decide that we're going to wait and do it tomorrow because we have a little bit more time tomorrow. So like little stuff like that, and engaging your kids in those kind of conversations are promoting problem solving skills. And it's something super simple as that. Encouraging positive social interactions. So, when they are interacting with other kids or other people, really encouraging that. Sometimes you have to give kids a script for when they want to go play with someone and they don't know them, but you know how kids are when they see other kids, they want to go play. So you might have to say, hey, go tell them that your name is this and that you want to play with them, that you have this new idea that you want to play. And then they send them off, and that's how they enter into the play. So those are ways that you can encourage that. Limit screen time. So a lot of parents talk about screen time. So screen time definitely promotes isolation, right? Because our kids, especially the teenagers, they go into their room, they stay stuck in there all day. You have to get them out. And we're just coming out with more and more research about how the screen time and media, especially social media, is not really helping our kids. And so we as parents have to be very, very mindful about setting limits around screen time, because we know that an increase in screen time is contributing to depression and anxiety, as well as childhood obesity, as well as difficulties with being able to interact with people and in reality, face to face, right? Because we're not having those experiences. So really make sure that you're being intentional about what your kids are looking at and consuming, monitoring it, regulating it, to make sure it's appropriate for your child and their age and their development. And I always say, look at their emotional development, right? Like just because you have a 9-year-old doesn't mean that your 9-year-old is emotionally at 9. Your 9-year-old might be emotionally at an 8-year-old level. So, there might be some things that they can handle and some things that they can't. So really making sure that you're keeping an eye on that, and ask questions about what they're watching and what they're looking at. Discuss it with them. Ask them if that's something that you really should be watching, right? Again, putting those critical thinking skills in and that problem solving about do you think this might be something that you should watch, or do you think that this might be something you need to watch later? So that is my big piece of just really being very diligent about the screen time. And again, encouraging any type of any interest that your kid is having, definitely encouraging that and having them to engage in that, seek those different opportunities out for them. I think that's what the next slide is too, is basically seeking opportunities for your kids when you find that you want them, exposing them to Blackness, exposing them to other people who may look like them or different than them or have similar in their culture than you. Apologize when you are wrong. That's the biggest thing is, sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't handle that the best way. I probably should have did this. Again, that shows that we as parents are human too, and we might not do things the best way. affirming your children, remembering to talk, but also remembering to listen, right? So that's something that kids say all the time. My mom just doesn't listen. I wish my dad would just listen. So definitely doing that. Being present in the moment so that they know that we're listening, that we are understanding them, that we do love them. And then the last one was just normalizing help seeking for kids. So, if they're seeing you going out looking for help, then they know it's okay to ask for help. And that it can be helpful.
Okay, let's see. So Patrice has a question. Can we talk about best strategies around bullying, especially if your child is the target?
Yeah. So bullying is a big, huge thing. And these kids these days are just so mean. They're like meaner than what they were when I was a kid. But if your kid is the target, then definitely going up to the school and talking to the school about what is happening, what your kid is reporting to you, and letting them know that you have a no nonsense tolerance for bullying, even though schools say that they do. You as the parent have to really advocate and speak for your child. And that's another parenting strategy that I probably didn't put on there. It's just making sure that you're advocating for your child in every way that you can. I always say that but if a school and a teacher knows that you are involved, they do have a different type of concern for your child, unfortunately. Um, but if that school is not doing anything about it, then they need to go somewhere else. But also teaching your children too about some people do bully other people because they've been bullied or they just don't have the skills. And so teaching your kids to be assertive and to speak up for themselves and giving them different strategies that protect them when they are having those bullying situations.
Definitely. That is a very tough and challenging situation, but certainly a situation where the school has to definitely be involved. So,
Mhm.
okay. Next slide.
I think that's it. I think I covered everything.
Yeah. So, well, great.
Any
Let's
other
see.
questions?
Any other questions?
What if I'm trying to lean into being more conscious parent and the grands are spirit rod kind of folks? Oh, that's a hard one. Marie asked, what if I'm trying to lean into being a more conscious parent and the grands are spare the rod kind of folks? So I usually just tell parents to make sure that you are talking to grandparents and other people about how it is that what your family philosophy is, what you and your husband agree to or significant other agree to. And grandparents are going to have their thoughts and their feelings, but at the same time too, they should respect what it is that you are trying to implement with your kids and your family. But I know that sometimes that's not easy. So I always talk to parents about putting boundaries in place when it comes to grandparents and taking care of kiddos. She said, not that I am the grand. Oh.
Yeah, that's a very tough one. So I grew up in Ghana, in Africa, in a
Mhm.
very typical, it takes a village to
Mhm.
raise a child sort of situation. My mom's family was very hands-on with us. My grandparents were with us throughout the whole, time when we're growing. My
Mhm.
aunt, I mean, even now, my mom passed away. So my mom's sister, we talk about, some of the things she would do when I was a kid and laugh about it and stuff. So, and as I became a parent, I started to think about how my mom parented us and how I would like that to change, being that now I'm in America. My kids are, African American kids, but we're
Mhm.
still African. So we're like straddling these two worlds.
Yeah.
Although in Africa now it's a whole different situation. So, I mean, I definitely am for the it takes a village to raise the kid sort of situation, because I feel like every parental
Mhm.
unit brings something to the table.
Yeah.
But obviously it depends on who that person is and what their values are, and what they're espousing. So the parent again has to kind of regulate that
Mhm.
to make sure how much their influences. I mean, grandparents, when my daughter was a baby, my mom wanted to feed my daughter like a 2 months old, like, food and water and all the things that they did, when they had kids. And I was in medical school then, and she would say, well, how do you think you got so smart? Who raised you? So it's like, well, you have a point there, Mom. So anyway, so yes, the I feel like the grands have a big role to play in raising families. There are a lot of cultures here in America that still maintain the multi-generational structure in their homes.
Mhm.
I don't know, I haven't looked at the data yet to find out which works better. But now I think that I just saw an article recently about how the nuclear family didn't really help America much,
Yeah.
but I am definitely it takes a village. I have, my sisters are very involved and with my kids. All my sisters have different personalities, but they all play a role in what they contribute in raising all of our, and I play a role in raising their kids as well. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah, no, I agree too. It definitely takes a village, and I think that that's what a lot of people are struggling with, is that they're raising kids on their own without the village, and that's hard.
very hard. Well, we have a few more questions. Okay, so Marie, I mean that grant. Okay. Thank you for joining so many workshops. Okay, and then Leslie is asking, what does spanking do to children? Ooh, that's a whole research topic.
I was gonna say it's a whole research topic, a whole workshop on its own.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's research that just shows that spanking does not necessarily work. And that spanking teaches kids to use violence to cope with their emotions or cope with their different challenges. But most of the research just says that spanking is not a effective tool in discipline, to sum that up in a quick way.
Yeah. I mean, like again, even in a culture where I grew up with spanking and all the things, we talk about how, oh my God, now we don't spank. Like, I don't spank my kids because I don't think my kids need to be spanked. I
Mhm.
use, the negotiation,
Mhm.
you know, kind of such strategies. So I never really have to spank my kids because it doesn't work. It just, yeah, if anything, it builds mistrust between if from my point of view, that the kids don't trust you, and then it builds the violence, and then depending on how much spanking, then now
Yeah.
we're getting into the
Yeah.
abuse realm. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Leslie, do you want to unmute? Can the participants talk? Maybe Leslie can give us a couple of comments on their question.
I think the participants are on mute.
Let's see. I think I can unmute. I don't have the unmute capability. Okay, well,
Hello?
oh, there you go.
Yes, I just wanted you to speak on the issue. I think it teaches people to be violent, and it's not likely to work. People say it's working and they point to the Bible, but I think it's I just wanted to see what you would say.
Yeah, that's the thing that, as a Bible believing Christian, both Old Testament and New Testament believing Christian, yes, spare the rod and spoil the child. But I feel like sometimes in our situation, we don't have the village, right? So parents are frustrated. Back in the Bible times, the kids were running around in the community. You know, this person could correct you. This person could tell you to go home. This person could tell you to stop, you know, what you're doing. You know, it took like the whole community to raise the kid. So I don't know what the rod was then, but I feel like now parents are just frustrated, tired, and the tendency to go overboard with spanking can be, you know, detrimental in our situation where the kid doesn't have any kind of buffer system in terms of parental examples to even go to cry to, you know, because you can go to the aunts if you get spanked, or go, you know, somewhere else where somebody can hold you and say, oh, you know, you what. And I remember those situations when I was a kid where I got spanked, where I got somebody else to say, oh, come over here. Yeah, you did wrong, but here I am. You know, you can cry on me or whatever. So yeah, so I feel like the Bible gets taken out of context a lot.
A lot.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a really good question.
that's a good question. Yeah.
And then Jasmine Cornish says, interesting to hear that I'm from Ghana. Oh, okay. Her husband is from Ghana. She visited in 2013. Ghana is completely different now. You need to go back. Insightful and wonderful experience. Yes, it is. And then Marie says, I do not believe we should spank our children. It does teach them that the stronger, bigger person can exert their power. If you are tired, remove yourself, call Nana. Yep, provided she's nearby, or a neighbor or auntie, as Dr. P says. Yes, because, you know, again, that's why it says it takes a village, because if you spank the kid, they have somewhere to go, or, you know, and it's not the
And
bigger,
if we
stronger
think of,
persons.
and if we think about the word discipline, right? So discipline means to teach and to I feel like what is spanking teaching? Spanking is teaching that when I get mad or I get frustrated or I get upset or if I'm tired, I can go hit somebody, right? It doesn't really say like, okay, like what can I do? What are some actual steps that I can do to whatever is going on, rectify that? And most of the time when you talk to adults who got spanked a lot, they're like, all I know is that my mom and dad got mad and I got a spanking. And I didn't make the connection. And so, and then, you know, kids start to internalize things, and that makes them think about themselves in a not so good light, which then becomes their self-fulfilling prophecy in life. And so I would say, like, why would we want to contribute to that?
Exactly. And again, now in this world where kids are home, on social media, living this false sense of what the world is, and then you're spanking them, and then, yeah, no, yeah. Like I said, I am African. I got spanked, and I don't spank my kids because I don't see it necessary. Yeah, and I don't think it's the way to raise children for all the reasons that we've discussed.
Yeah, I never got a spanking, but I tell people that, like, my mom, she had the face. She had the
Yes,
nose.
that too.
That face and that
Face
nose
and the
flaring
eye
out.
and the pinch.
And then I knew.
Yes.
So.
So, well, thank you so much. This I think, has been a very fulfilling discussion. Thank you so much, Tandy. Thank you all to our attendees and the contributions and the questions. That has really contributed and made for a very rich conversation. Thank you, Marie, for organizing these sessions. Amazing. Thank you, everybody, and join us on the next session. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.